The Pyramid of Djoser, or Step Pyramid, is an archaeological remain in the Saqqara necropolis, Egypt, northwest of the city of Memphis. It was built during the 27th century BC for the burial of Pharaoh Djoser by Imhotep, his vizier. It is the central feature of a vast mortuary complex in an enormous courtyard surrounded by ceremonial structures and decoration. This first Egyptian pyramid consisted of 6 master bases built atop one another in what were clearly revisions and developments of the original plan. The pyramid originally stood 62 meters tall, with a base of 109 meters times 125 meters and was clad in polished white limestone. The step pyramid is considered to be the earliest large-scale cut stone construction. Although the pyramids at Caral in South America are contemporary and the nearby enclosure known as Gisr el-Mudir would seem to predate the complex. Djoser was the first or second king of the third dynasty of the Egyptian Old Kingdom. He is believed to have ruled for 19 years or, if the 19 years were biennial taxation years, 38 years. He reigned long enough to allow the grandiose plan for his pyramid to be realized in his lifetime. Djoser is best known for his innovative tomb, which dominates the Saqqara landscape. In this tomb he is referred to by his Horus name Nefertiti. Djoser is a name given by New Kingdom visitors thousands of years later. Djoser's step pyramid is astounding in its departure from previous architecture. It sets several important precedents, perhaps the most important of which is its status as the first monumental structure made of stone. The social implications of such a large and carefully sculpted stone structure are staggering. The process of building such a structure would be far more labor-intensive than previous monuments of mud brick. This suggests that the state, and therefore the royal government, had a new level of control of resources, both material and human. Also, from this point on, kings of the Old Kingdom are buried in the north, rather than at Abydos. Furthermore, although the plan of Djoser's pyramid complex is different than later complexes. Finally, another intriguing first is the identification of the architect Imhotep, who is credited with the design and construction of the complex. Precedence. Djoser's pyramid draws ideas from several precedents. The most relevant precedent is found at Saqqara Mastaba 3038. The substructure lay in a 4 meters deep rectangular pit, and had mud brick walls rising to 6 meters. 3 sides were extended and built out to create 8 shallow steps rising at an angle of 49 degrees. This would have been an elongated step pyramid if the remaining side had not been left uncovered. In another parallel to Djoser's complex, to complete this mastaba complex, a niched enclosure wall was erected. Overview. Djoser's step pyramid complex has several structures pivotal to its function in both life and the afterlife. Several are discussed below with attention paid to function and form. The pyramid was not simply a grave in ancient Egypt. Its purpose was to facilitate a successful afterlife for the king so that he could be eternally reborn. The symbolism of the step pyramid form, which did not survive the Third Dynasty, is unknown, but it has been suggested that it may be a monumental symbol of the crown, especially the royal mortuary cult, since 7 small step pyramids were built in the provinces. Another well-accepted theory is that it facilitated the king's ascension to join the Eternal North Star. The main excavator of the step pyramid was Jean-Philippe Lauer, a French architect who reconstructed key portions of the complex. The complex covers 15 hectares and is about 2.5 times as large as the Old Kingdom town of Erekonthalis. Several features of the complex differ from those of later Old Kingdom pyramids. The Pyramid Temple is situated at the north side of the pyramid, whereas in later pyramids it is on the east side. Also, the Djoser complex is built on a north-south axis, whereas later complexes utilize an east-west axis. Furthermore, the Djoser complex has 1 niched enclosure wall, whereas later pyramids have 2 enclosure walls, with the outside one being smooth and the inside one sometimes niched. enclosure wall. The Djoser complex is surrounded by a wall of light Jura limestone 10.5 meters high. The wall design recalls the appearance of First Dynasty tombs, with the distinctive paneled construction known as the palace facade, which imitates bound bundles of reeds. The overall structure imitates mud brick. The wall is interrupted by 14 doors, however only one entrance, in the south corner of the east facade, is functional for the living. This arrangement resembles early dynastic funerary enclosures at Abydos, in which the entrance was on the east side. The remaining doors are known as false doors, and were meant for the king's use in the afterlife. They functioned as portals through which the king's car could pass between life and the afterlife. The functional door at the southeast end of the complex leads to a narrow passageway that connects to the roofed colonnade. Great trench outside the enclosure wall. Djoser's complex is completely surrounded by a trench dug in the underlying rock. The trench measures 750 meters long and 40 meters wide and is a rectangle on a north-south axis. The walls of the trench were originally decorated with niches, and its function seems to have been to make entry into the complex more difficult. Roofed colonnade entrance. The roofed colonnade led from the enclosure wall to the south of the complex. A passageway with a limestone ceiling constructed to look as though it was made from whole tree trunks led to a massive stone imitation of two open doors. Beyond this portal was a hall with 20 pairs of limestone columns composed of drum-shaped segments built to look like bundles of plant stems and reaching a height of 6.6 meters. The columns were not freestanding, but were attached to the wall by masonry projections. Between the columns on both sides of the hall were small chambers, which some Egyptologists propose may have been for each of the provinces of Upper and Lower Egypt. At the end of the colonnade was the transverse Hypo-style room with 8 columns connected in pairs by blocks of limestone. This led to the South Court. The South Court is a large court between the South Tomb and the Pyramid. Within the court are curved stones thought to be territorial markers associated with the Hepsed festival, an important ritual completed by Egyptian kings to renew their powers. These would have allowed Djoser to claim control over all of Egypt, while its presence in the funerary complex would allow Djoser to continue to benefit from the ritual in the afterlife. At the southern end of the court was a platform approached by steps. It has been suggested that this was a platform for the double throne. This fits into the theory proposed by Barry Kemp, and generally accepted by many, that suggests the whole step pyramid complex symbolizes the royal palace enclosure and allows the king to eternally perform the rituals associated with kingship. At the very south of the South Court lay the South Tomb. The South Tomb has been likened to the satellite pyramids of later dynasties, and has been proposed to house the car in the afterlife. Another proposal is that it may have held the canopic jar with the king's organs. But this does not follow later trends where the canopic jar is found in the same place as the body. These proposals stem from the fact that the granite burial vault is much too small to have facilitated an actual burial. The substructure of the South Tomb is entered through a tunnel-like corridor with a staircase that descends about 30 meters before opening up into the pink granite burial chamber. The staircase then continues west and leads to a gallery that imitates the blue chambers below the step pyramid. Current evidence suggests that the South Tomb was finished before the pyramid. The symbolic king's inner palace, decorated in blue faience, is much more complete than that of the pyramid. 3 chambers of this substructure are decorated in blue faience to imitate reed mat facades, just like the pyramid. One room is decorated with 3 finely niched reliefs of the king, one depicting him running the Hepsed. Importantly, Egyptian builders chose to employ their most skilled artisans and depict their finest art in the darkest, most inaccessible place in the complex. This highlights the fact that this impressive craftsmanship was not meant for the benefit of the living but was meant to ensure the king had all the tools necessary for a successful afterlife. Step pyramid. The superstructure of the step pyramid is 6 steps and was built in 6 stages. As might be expected with an experimental structure, the pyramid began as a square mastaba which was gradually enlarged, first evenly on all four sides and later just on the east side. The mastaba was built up in two stages, first to form a four-stepped structure and then to form a six-stepped structure, which now had a rectangular base on an east-west axis. The fact that the initial mastaba was square has led many to believe that the monument was never meant to be a mastaba, as no other known mastabase had ever been square. When the builders began to transform the mastaba into the four-step pyramid, they made a major shift in construction. Like in the construction of the mastaba, they built a crude core of rough stones and then cased him in fine limestone with packing in between. The major difference is that in mastaba construction they laid horizontal courses, but for the pyramid layers, they built in accretion layers that leaned inwards, while using blocks that were both bigger and higher quality. Much of the rock for the pyramid was likely quarried from the construction of the Great Trench. It is widely accepted that ramps would have been used to raise heavy stone to construct the pyramid, and many plausible models have been suggested. Apparatuses like rollers in which the heavy stone could be placed and then rolled were employed in transport. Pyramid substructure. Under the step pyramid is a labyrinth of tunneled chambers and galleries that total nearly 6 kilometers in length and connect to a central shaft 7 meters square, and 28 meters deep. These spaces provide room for the king's burial, the burial of family members, and the storage of goods and offerings. The entrance to the 28-meter shaft was built on the north side of the pyramid, a trend that would remain throughout the Old Kingdom. The sides of the underground passages are limestone inlaid with blue faience tile to replicate reed matting. These palace facade walls are further decorated by panels decorated in low relief that show the king participating in the Hebsed. Together these chambers constitute the funerary apartment that mimicked the palace and would serve as the living place of the royal car. On the east side of the pyramid 11 shafts 32 meters deep were constructed and annexed to horizontal tunnels for the royal harem. These were incorporated into the pre-existing substructure as it expanded eastward. In the storerooms along here over 40,000 stone vessels were found, many of which predate Djoser. These would have served Djoser's visceral needs in the afterlife. An extensive network of underground galleries was located to the north, west and south of the central burial chamber, and crude horizontal magazines were carved into these. Burial chamber. The burial chamber was a vault constructed of 4 courses of well-dressed granite. It had one opening, which was sealed with a 3.5-ton block after the burial. No body was recovered as the tomb had been extensively robbed. Lauer believes that a burial chamber of alabaster existed before the one of granite. He found interesting evidence of limestone blocks with 5-pointed stars in low relief that were likely on the ceiling, indicating the first occurrence of what would become a tradition. The king sought to associate himself with the eternal North Stars that never set so as to ensure his rebirth and eternity. North Temple and Tsardom Court. The northern temple was on the north side of the pyramid and faced the North Stars, which the king wished to join in eternity. This structure provided a place in which the daily rituals and offerings to the dead could be performed, and was the cult center for the king. To the east of the temple is the Tsardom, which is a small enclosed structure that housed the Ka statue. The king's Ka inhabited the Ka statue in order to benefit from daily ceremonies like the opening of the mouth, a ceremony that allowed him to breathe aneat, and the burning of incense. He witnessed these ceremonies through 2 small eye holes cut in the north wall of the Tsardom. This temple appears on the north side of the pyramid throughout the 3rd dynasty, as the king wishes to go north to become one of the eternal stars in the north sky that never set. In the 4th dynasty, when there is a religious shift to an emphasis on rebirth and eternity achieved through the sun, the temple is moved to the east side of the temple where the sun rises, so that through association the king may be reborn every day. Hebsed Court. The Hebsed Court is rectangular and parallel to the south courtyard. It was meant to provide a space in which the king could perform the Hebsed ritual in the afterlife. Flanking the east and west sides of the court are the remains of two groups of chapels, many of which are dummy buildings, are three different architectural styles. At the north and south ends there are three chapels with flat roofs and no columns. The remaining chapels on the west side are decorated with fluted columns and capitals flanked by leaves. Each of the chapels has a sanctuary accessed by a roofless passage with walls that depict false doors and latches. Some of these buildings have niches for statues. Egyptologists believe that these buildings were related to the important double coronation of the king during the Hebsed.